Welcome to The Democratic Voice, your community action program dedicated to bringing you the issues that impact America and concern Colorado. Brought to you every week at this time by the El Paso County Democratic Party, your voice in the future of Colorado Springs.
Good evening and welcome to the Democratic Voice. Thank you for tuning in this evening. Politics right now, we are at a crucial time, and not only at state level but national level also. So let's think about those things when we're talking about at the national level. If we don't win this race, we could lose the Senate. And when we're talking about losing the Senate, we're turning the dogs loose. So let's don't do that. And how do we keep from doing that? Democrats, 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 get out and vote. We must do that. We must do that. And it works not only at the national level, but when we're talking about the state level. We control the Senate by only one seat there at state level. So it's imperative that you get out and vote so we can have a good Colorado. And in the governor's race, it is, you know what the economy is now. So I want to talk with you about the man that has the plan, the man with a plan that will take care of El Paso County. And fortunately, he's with us this evening, so I can direct those questions to him. Rollie Heath, welcome, and thanks for coming out and speaking with El Paso County. Tell me about Rollie Heath.
Well, Fred, first, always great to be here.
Thank you.
Been here many, many times, as you know, and you've always been a great host. Well, Rollie Heath, like probably many of your listeners out there, has been a military man. I spent 9 years, almost 9 years, in the United States Army.
Roger that.
And came to Colorado right after I got out of the service, and then stayed in the Army Reserves for another 13 years, retired in 1982 as a lieutenant colonel, and went to work in Colorado. Was here about 2.5 years, and the company I was with wanted me to go to Ohio, and Josie and I looked at each other and said, that's not what we want to do. We want to raise our kids here. Have 3 kids, 3 grandchildren now, 4th grandchild on the way. 2 of our 3 kids are in Colorado. I spent close to 20 years with Johns Manville Corporation, ended up running both of their major subsidiaries. So I ran a $1 billion business, had 10,000 people working for me around the world, 100 different plants and mines. So I had a lot of responsibility, enjoyed it. And then my good wife decided to run for the United States Senate in 1990. And I decided that I wanted to help, so I took early retirement from Johns Manville and drove 50,000 miles in 1990 in 9 months, doing things like this, actually, for Josie. And unfortunately, she won the primary, but unfortunately, she lost the general election. And then I went and started a small manufacturing company. A couple of partners and I started a precision metal machine shop, and got very involved in workforce issues and education issues, and you know what messages we were giving to kids that didn't go to college, how we could get them more involved, and learning to be machinists and work for companies like mine, tool and die makers, welders, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, you name it. But got very involved in that whole process. Became heavily involved as a volunteer in the Denver Public Schools, where my plant was. Actually got the Lifetime Achievement Award for the Denver Chamber for my work in inner city schools, which I was very proud of. Not so much proud of the award, but why they gave it to me.
Great. Rollie, I am so proud of you and what you and your family have accomplished in the state of Colorado. In fact, I had an opportunity, you might remember, to tour your small business, as you call it, small business, and you do have the expertise. You've seen everything from the high and the great large companies, and like you have seen service for your country in the military. You've gone out, you know what it is, so you probably realize that I probably like you just a wee bit anyway. So that is what I'm so proud of. Let's talk about, if we may though, right now in El Paso County, Colorado Springs, we've lost so many jobs. It's ludicrous, really. So could you tell our viewing audience what your plan is, where we were, where we're at now, and where you would like to see us go?
Okay. Well, you know, this morning's headlines showed us that the state has down another $388 million
Yes.
in revenue. And unfortunately, that's on top of the what I been estimated to be about 220 going into this. So I mean, you know, we're looking at over $600 million in budget cuts. It's unclear to me, and it seems to be unclear to Governor Owens and certainly to his staff, whether they've made any of those cuts yet or not. I asked the question Wednesday, you know, what's your plan to, you know, in terms of the cuts, and they basically said we don't have a plan. So it almost blows my mind that you don't have a plan, and you've obviously got a fiscal crisis of huge magnitude. You know, just to give the people an idea, we've gone from an $800 million surplus to a $1.2 billion shortfall, and now you can add almost $400 million onto more to that. So, you know, from $800 million surplus to a $1.6 billion shortfall. That's a $2.4 billion negative swing in less than 2 years. You'd almost think you'd have to try to do that. You mentioned jobs. We've gone from the third highest job creating state in the country. And in July, the last statistics that were released were 50th. We're last.
Oh.
We're the worst. So we've gone from third to 50th. We've had 66,000 jobs lost since January, and that's the most recent statistic, and we know that's climbed materially since then. You know, we're a small business state. It's forcing small businesses to stop providing health care to their employees. Last year alone, 4,700 small businesses totaling 82,000 employees and their families lost their health care. So, I mean, you know, we've got some dramatic things happening in this economy, and for the love of me, I can't, as I said, see any plan. We know that tourism is a big part of this economy. Certainly it is in all the wonderful things you have in El Paso County for people and tourists to come see. Tourism industry is suffering. I sat down with 25 tourism owners of various kinds of businesses in Buena Vista last week. And to a person, they said when the governor said all of Colorado was on fire, I mean, it killed their businesses. And we're off anywhere from, from 10 to 20%. And that's just a huge loss in revenue. And, you know, when the governor should be out, taking the flag and saying, come to Colorado, we're open for business. Giuliani, after the tragedy in New York, if you remember, it was so vivid to me, standing out there when asked, what can we do for New York? Said, come, shake our people's hands, pat us on the back, and spend your money. That's the best thing.
Yes.
That's the best thing you can do. And unfortunately, this governor doesn't understand that. He hasn't been trying to sell this state at all. And the irony is, our tourism's down, Wyoming is up. You know why Wyoming is up? Every press release the state of Wyoming puts out, they say, we're open for business. Come here, come hunt, come fish, come play golf, come see our beautiful scenery. We could have done the same thing. Instead, we gave the opposite message. We hung a big closed for business sign outside on every entrance to the state, and it cost us a lot.
Wow.
You know, and today I listened, I just came from giving a talk. I was supposed to debate the governor for the third time in a row. The governor did not show up.
Another no-show?
Another no-show today. And the spokesperson for him said, well, it's because of 9/11. That's because of the droughts, because of the fires, and sure, all of that had a role in it. But what I reminded everybody was this governor, in the face of Tabor, put a $1 billion permanent tax cut in, which basically took away all of our ability to deal with these tough issues.
Wow.
And when he made it permanent, that means the only way you can go back is to a vote of the people. That's going to take a year, so we have absolutely no resources to deal with this shortfall in budget revenue.
Wow. Wow, that is heart-rending, to say the least, Rollie.
Well, what's heart-rending, Fred, is what it's going to mean in human terms.
Yes.
It's going to mean more drastic cuts in Medicaid, the people that can least afford it. It's going to mean another major cuts in capital construction, which the projects stop, yes, but look at all the jobs that go with it. These are good-paying construction jobs. You put all of those people out of work. You put higher ed, you stop higher ed, you stop the construction here at the Springs, University of Colorado Springs. I mean, all of those mean more job cuts. To say, I don't know how many people are going to have to be furloughed or done something with the state government. Those are all jobs. So what this does is just compounds itself. By having to do this with no money to spend on construction and people, I mean, what that does is just makes this worse.
Yes, that is this wretching situation. Let me get off the point just a moment, and let me pick up on something you said. He was not at your debate that you went out to have. How many debates have you had scheduled that he didn't show at?
Well, we did Club 20 debate in Grand Junction 2 weeks ago today, actually, which he attended. And you know, there are 3 regional organizations. Club 20 is the oldest. Action 22, of which El Paso County is a part.
Yes.
They had their debate last Friday night in Alamosa. The governor was not there. The Black African American women had a debate in Denver this week. He was not there. And today, Progressive 15, which is the 15 northeastern counties of this state, had their debate today, and he chose not to be there either. So he obviously just wants to pick and choose. The debate, Club 20, was televised, and maybe he thought he had a bigger viewing audience, and he just didn't need to come to the rural parts of Colorado, and that seems to be the message. I think it's the height of arrogance myself.
Well, let's see. You know, I was presented with a letter this past week which invited the 2 of you to El Paso County in October, I believe, probably the 18th of October, and I would like to see if he would duck out of a meeting here. I don't know if you or your staff has received the letter and responded to it or not, but it was sent out to both last week, so it will be very interesting to see who shows up for debate in El Paso County. Who cares about us?
Well, I've basically told him I'll show up anytime, any place, anywhere, so.
Well, let's prove you're here right now. And every time I see Rollie, he's in El Paso County. We like that because we know you're very interested in the whole state, not just El Paso County or Denver. You travel all of our counties. While we're talking about traveling the counties, we've talked about our economy, which is, we know, in shambles because of the decisions he has made. Tell me, we talk about white gold. You know, we can't water our lawns much here now, and some of our communities now, they are out of water and having to truck waters into. So do you have a plan for, the water plan for the next year, 5 years, 30 years, whatever it takes?
Well, I'd love to be able to do a rain dance, Fred. And,
I'll do that for you.
and just solve the problem. But you know, the irony is, we live on the edge of the Great American Desert. You know, when you go back in history and just look at rings of trees, which obviously tell you a lot, there are people out there that say that study this, that there's evidence of 26 years, consecutive years of drought in this state. Wow. And you know, this is not the first year. This is the 4th year of this drought. 3 years by some parts of the state, but most of the state, it's the 4th year of this drought. So basically, since Bill Owens has been in office, we've had a drought. And there is absolutely no water plan to deal with it. I mean, it almost is unimaginable that probably the single biggest issue that is going to determine the future of this state, which is water, we don't have a plan to deal with it. What I am saying is that as soon as I'm elected, I wouldn't even wait till I'm sworn in. We'd put together a summit, a strategic water summit for this state. We'd invite all parts of this state to be a part of that summit, trying to understand the problems, understand our alternatives, because I have a huge fear, Fred, and I think we all should. I mean, we've already seen water wars start. Yes. Just last week, Golden and Westminster in the Denver metropolitan area. When my wife ran for the United States Senate, and I mentioned that in 1990, I can remember marching in an anti-AWDI parade, American Water Development Incorporated, who had this scheme bunch of investment folks they had this scheme to move all of the water out of the San Luis Valley and move it up into Aurora and Denver, and fortunately that was stopped. And that's going to start all over again. And we're going to pit regions against regions, communities against communities, neighbors against neighbors, and we just can't let that happen. I mean, that would destroy this state. Because you said it's like white gold, and you know what happened in the gold rush. I mean, some of the people, the fights over claims and so forth. They would destroy this state. So the governor's got to take leadership in this role. And the best way to do it is to get everybody at the table. I'm a guy that likes to roll up his sleeves, get involved. I'm not going to stand as the governor did on the growth issue and said, you dummies, go out and solve this problem. If you don't, I'm going to bash your heads together. That's leadership for him. Leadership for me is inviting people to the table. We've got some of the foremost water experts in the world right here in Colorado. And you think this administration's talking to any of them or using them? The answer is no. So we've got to have a plan that brings all of those folks into it. We've obviously got to combine land use planning with water planning. Down in Crowley County, basically all the water is sold under it. Rocky Ford, there was a concern, but Rocky Ford this year, some of the farmers tried some drip irrigation and found out that they could save a lot of water and have much more productive crops. I understand, I got to get my hand on one soon, but they've done things, but they need help. They can't put those systems in without the state helping them and getting some funds, getting some loans. So we got to look to helping people. Obviously, we got to talk conservation. I mean, there's no question about that. But we've got to look at what the problem is, get everybody at the table, and use some of these creative thoughts to begin to solve the problem. This governor hasn't done a thing. I mean, we talk about planning. There's no fiscal plan for this state. There's no water plan for this state. We saw there was no fire plan for this state. And we're suffering the consequences. I've been asking the question, can we afford 4 more years of Bill Owens? And somebody said the other day, can we afford 6 more months of them? And I said, well, unfortunately, we're stuck with them. But fortunately, we're not for 4 more years.
True. And when we talk about all the planning, and I know the experience you've had in the planning field. Now, I believe about 90% of the people in Colorado are employed by small businesses and things like this. Do you have a plan where we in the small business community would be able to survive these downturns and do more for like health care and things for the employees?
Yes, thanks. Thanks for asking the question. As I said when I introduced myself, I've been a small business owner, manufacturing company. We had 40 employees for the last 13 years. And small business is the heart and soul of Colorado.
Yes.
Whether you're talking agriculture, whether you're talking tourism, whether you're talking business, retail business, manufacturing business, you use the number, 92% of the state is small business, 50 employees or less. That's why I said in the tourism, it's so important that the governor goes out and sell it, because each of these small individual businesses can't do that. So they need a spokesperson. They need the governor of the state to take leadership. We need to do the same thing with small businesses of all types. I started the World Trade Center in Denver. They call me the father of the World Trade Center, of Denver's World Trade Center. And one of the reasons we did that was because of agriculture. Because the whole reason for the World Trade Center was to help and assist exports from this state abroad. And clearly, we know that agricultural products are one of the most important exports that Colorado has. So we need to give that support. And then in terms of small business, the irony is it took almost 5 years for us to get a major order in Colorado. As part of my duties when I was on the board of the Denver Chamber, I chaired the Economic Development Council of the Denver Chamber. We got very involved because this was late 80s and we were in the pits again. We formed and took on ABC, Always Buy Colorado. And, it's a simple idea, but let's sell our own businesses. Let's make sure everybody here knows what we can do, what our capabilities are. And let's go back to that. I think we need to go back to the basics.
Yes.
I think we need to go back to the basics and create jobs. And healthcare, you mentioned it, is a huge issue for small business. When we started our company, we said as a matter of principle, we would not start the company without providing health care, period.
Great.
And we did that and have done that. And I ended up selling my interest to my partner because it's pretty hard to run for governor
Yes.
and worry about weekly payrolls and all those kinds of things. But we literally changed carriers 3 times in 4 years just to keep the premiums at 25%, going up not more than 25%. Well, you don't like to do that because you don't want to have people having to change doctors every year and, start that relationship all over again. So, I wasn't pleased with it, but at least we were able to continue the coverage for our employees. Well, clearly health care is one of the most critical issues that this state is facing in terms of the people issues. So we decided to come out with a health care plan. And by raising the price of a pack of cigarettes $1, an excise tax, we'd raise $2.5 billion over 10 years.
Wow.
And what I wanted to do, we carved out $100 million for 10 years or $1 billion to help small businesses. So basically the plan is very simple. Any small business, 50 employees or less, who is willing to pay at least 50% of the health care premium for their employee would be entitled to a reimbursement up to $1,000 per year per employee to help reimburse them for paying the premiums. What we want to do is stop the number of companies that are dropping health care, give them the incentive to keep the health care, and hopefully inspire companies that aren't providing any health care to do it. And hopefully that's enough of incentive. By the way, the rest of that money, prescription drugs for seniors is a huge issue.
Oh, yes, yes.
So those seniors who are on Medicare, they basically get no prescription drug coverage. So people that earn $25,000 or less a year in terms of income, we're going to give them $1,000, just like we did the small business, so they can buy their prescriptions. So a family that has or an individual has about $100 a month in prescription drugs, basically is going to get it all paid with a few dollars out of their pocket, but not much. So we wanted to do that. Also, another fact that, now that I'm given facts, that I think the viewers should know, and I think this is atrocious. We're the 40th worst state in the whole country in the percentage of kids 18 and under that have no health care at all.
Wow. Yeah.
We're 43rd worst in the country in terms of children born low birth weights, under 5 pounds.
Wow.
So part of what we're going to use that money for is to broaden the eligibility for kids under the CHIP Plus program. And we would pick up more than half of the kids that don't have health care now. And by doing relatively the same thing for expectant mothers, we would pick up a lot, because we know that if a pregnant mom, an expectant mother, gets help in that first trimester, the chances of them having a healthier baby are imminently better. And we wanted to get at those two problems as well. So we're taking a very, very aggressive posture on health care, but it also helps small business at the same time.
Great. And I heard some comments about that dollar you were talking about increasing on a package of cigarettes. I went and looked up the statistics on that. There's only one state it charges, the tax less, and we do right now, or I should say North Carolina, the tobacco state, has lower tax, and we're 49th. So all the rest of the states, they've already done this to provide monies for various things.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and thanks for bringing up. Average price of a pack of cigarettes in Colorado right now is $3.18. North Carolina is $3.15. That's the tobacco state. On the other end of the spectrum is the city of New York, where it's $7.50. People in New York go over to New Jersey to buy their cigarettes for only $5 a pack. So, and I also think there's another interesting fact that everybody should know. We have sales tax on groceries. We have sales tax on when you go to a restaurant. Do you know we're the only state in the country that has a sales tax, that doesn't have a sales tax on cigarettes?
Wow, that is.
And that's another reason. You know how many packs of cigarettes we sold in the state last year?
How many?
302 million.
Wow.
And by doing this, we might just cut back on the number of cigarettes sold, but we figured people might cut back a little bit. Maybe some would quit, but more importantly, maybe some teenagers wouldn't start, which I think is important. So, there are all kinds of things, but we figured we'd still sell 257 million packs of cigarettes next year, and that's how we get $257 million to help us with healthcare times 10 years, $2.5 billion to help people with the healthcare issues that nobody else seems to be helping them with.
Well, you're going to save lives on two sides, medical care, and if they don't smoke, that will, oh, Raleigh, I like thinkers. I like people that plan. I like things. Let's talk about that for just a moment. Could you touch on our longest parking lot, I-25? What do you feel about transportation in the state?
Well, Fred, we've got a governor whose only priority seems to be concrete. He puts concrete over kids. We saw that when he vetoed the budget. We vetoed the Tony Gramsci's programs and the juvenile diversion programs. You got hit hard here. He vetoed libraries. You name it, and he vetoed it, but he kept his precious dollars for highways. And obviously, we need good roads in this state. There's no question about that. But I think people ought to also understand that we're one of 5 states in the whole country that doesn't have any full-time person dealing with alternative means of transportation. And that's regional air service. I was one of the spokespersons for DIA and got very involved in particularly the regional aspects of DIA. And obviously your airport here is critical. In all corners of this state, it goes to tourism, whether that's Durango or Grand Junction or any of these airports. We've got to look at alternatives to include regional air. And I'm talking about something that I honestly think the time has come for. And that's looking at high-speed commuter rail from Pueblo to Fort Collins. My vision is that, your people here, the people here in Colorado Springs that want to go to a Bronco game tomorrow or a Rockies game or, just want to go to the theater or something, have some reason, maybe it's business, get in there, drive their car to the train, take high-speed commuter rail, hook into the light rail in Denver and be able to go any place that they want to go without ever having to worry about their car after they've parked it here and then obviously get back in it. We've got to take the pressure off the highways. Obviously, Bill Owens' priorities is T-Rex. He put the state in hock for the very first time with the trans bonds, which we're all paying for, and which leaves us precious little money for the rest of the state and all the other projects that he promised that we're not going to get done.
Raleigh, not only has he put us in debt, but our grandchildren too. I think we've covered this evening, we've covered that Raleigh is a person for education. He has a plan for the water plan. He has a transportation plan. He has a fire plan. He has those things that we need to do to get Colorado jobs. It's going to help our economy, which is going to be the driving force that does things for the people of Colorado. So Raleigh is the person that we need. Rollie Heath needs your help. Without that help, we cannot win. So I beg of you to get on the phone, give Rollie a call our headquarters, tell him how you would like to work for him, and all those things. Rollie, I am so much looking forward to election night with you, and thanks for coming to El Paso County again and again and again. Thank you very much, and we wish you the best. And we will work for the best for you.
Thank you, Fred.